Hey there everyone, it's me Josh, welcome to Story Time. Today we're going to be reading Little Miss Trouble by Roger Hargreaves from the Little Miss Library. For all you Little Misses and Mr. Men out there, we're going to delve further and further into all of these books. Let's see what's going to happen in Little Miss Trouble. I hope you're comfortable, get ready wherever you are, because we're about to delve into Story Time. That's right, let's find out what is going to happen in Little Miss Trouble today. What we can learn and what kind of messages there are, hey? Let's see. Here comes trouble, people used to say. And who do you think would come walking along? That's right, Little Miss Trouble. Oh, the trouble she caused. Uh-oh. What kind of troublesome things is she going to get involved in today? Let's see. One morning she went to see Mr. Uppity. Do you know what Mr. Small calls you behind your back? She asked him. No, replied Mr. Uppity. What does Mr. Small call me behind my back? Little Miss Trouble looked at him. Fatty, she said. Wow, that's quite horrible. She does cause a lot of trouble. Not sure how I feel about that, eh? A little bit naughty. Do you think Little Miss Naughty and Little Miss Trouble would get along? Yeah. Now Mr. Uppity didn't like that. Not at all, not one little bit. He went round immediately to see Mr. Small. How dare you call me Fatty, he shouted. But, stammered Mr. Small, who had never called him Fatty. But nothing, shouted Mr. Uppity. Oh, wow. Now poor Mr. Small is in trouble with Mr. Uppity just because some trouble was started. Not very cool. And he hit poor Mr. Small. Ouch! And gave him a black eye. Poor Mr. Small. Wow, it's not good to hit at all. Violence isn't the answer. Hey, no it isn't. Little Miss Trouble, who was hiding behind a tree, hugged herself with glee. Oh, I do so like making trouble, she giggled to herself. Naughty girl. He's laughing there behind the tree, causing a ruckus, one would say. Little Miss Trouble went to see Mr. Clever. Do you know what Mr. Small calls you behind your back? She asked him. No, replied Mr. Clever. Tell me, what does Mr. Small call me behind my back? Little Miss Trouble looked at him. Big Nose, she said. Uh-oh. Sparking up all kinds of drama. Now, Mr. Clever didn't like that very much either. Off he rushed. And when he found Mr. Small, without waiting for an explanation, he punched him hard. Wow. It's not good to hit people at all. He just ran straight up to him and punched him in the mouth. Oh no, in the eye. He's got 2 black eyes now. In the other eye, it says, poor Mr. Small, 2 black eyes for something he'd never done. Oh, look at you, Miss Trouble laughed when she saw him. It's your fault. It's all your fault, Mr. Small, said Mr. Small. I'm sorry, it's all your fault, said Mr. Small. True, she said, and walked off. Not cool. Not cool at all. Poor Mr. Small had to go to the doctor. Good heavens, exclaimed Dr. Make-You-Well when he saw him. Whatever happened to you? And Mr. Small explained. I think Dr. Make-You-Well said when he'd heard what Mr. Small had to tell him, that something should be done about that little lady. What she needs is... And he stopped, and he chuckled. That's it, he laughed. What's it? Asked Mr. Small. And Dr. Make-You-Well whispered something to Mr. Small. Would you like to know what he whispered? Not telling you, it says. It's a secret. Uh-oh. Hopefully we can make Little Miss Trouble not make so much trouble about the place. So let's see what the plan is. That afternoon, Mr. Small went to see Mr. Tickle. Do you know what Miss Trouble calls you behind your back? He asked. No, said Mr. Tickle. What does Miss Trouble call me behind my back? Mr. Small looked at him. Pudding Face, he said. Mr. Tickle's just hanging out there. Seems like Mr. Small is going around and spreading rumours about Little Miss Trouble now. I don't know how I feel about that, but we'll find out what happens. Then Mr. Small went to see Mr. Bump. Do you know what Miss Trouble calls you behind your back? He asked. No, said Mr. Bump. What does Miss Trouble call me behind my back? Mr. Small looked at him. Mr. Nitwit, he said. Wow. Poor Mr. Bumps just popped his head out the window to chat to Mr. Small and has found out that he gets called Mr. Nitwit. Little Miss Trouble was in trouble. How dare you call me Pudding Face, cried Mr. Tickle, and tickled her. How dare you call me Mr. Nitwit, cried Mr. Bump, and bumped her. Now, I don't know whether you've been tickled and bumped at the same time, but it's not much fun. In fact, it's no fun at all. Tickle bump, tickle bump, tickle bump, tickle bump, it says. For 10 minutes, and 10 minutes of tickle bumping is a long time, I can tell you. Doesn't sound like much fun at all. Later that evening, Dr. Makewell strolled around to see Mr. Small. How are the eyes? He asked. Oh, much better now, thank you, replied Mr. Small. And did our little plan work? Asked the doctor. It did indeed, grinned Mr. Small. Shake, said Dr. Makewell, and they shook hands. Well, not quite hands. As you can see, Dr. Makewell has got a big giant hand the size of Mr. Small, so it's a little one-finger shake for politeness. Dr. Makewell then strolled round to see Miss Trouble. She was feeling very sorry for herself. What's wrong with you? He asked her. Then she told him all about it, all about everything. Dr. Makewell looked at her. Cheer up, he said. You know what you've just had, don't you? Little Miss Trouble shook her head. A taste of your own medicine, he chuckled, and went home for supper. This is very true, to an extent, but sometimes it's not good to do the same thing to someone that they did to hurt your feelings, because then you're kind of just doing the same thing. It's still a negative, still a wrong. Two wrongs don't make a right, yeah? Exactly. But the good thing we can learn from that is to not be troublesome, because eventually it'll all come back around and bite you, maybe. You know? It's not good to be mean to people and start trouble. Alright. If you like these stories, please subscribe, click that bell below, and then you can visit the page, read stories with me whenever you like. I'll be back again with another story really soon. Don't you worry about that. So bye for now, but not forever. I'm Josh, and this is Storytime.